Hello, how's it going? It has been a while. I've been busy. Oh well. Anyways, welcome to another Mad History Monday. Sometimes on Mondays, I sit down and talk about an interesting story or topic in history. The topics are completely random and go in no specific order at all. If that sounds like fun to you, then I highly suggest that you subscribe because sometimes I post videos. I went to Stratford Hall a while ago, and as I was walking around the lawn, I couldn't stop thinking about it. So here we are. When we think of summer, I think a lot of people will probably think of swimming and tanning and boating and walks in the sunshine and ice cream and bonfires, right? But for dads, it's all about the lawn. That's all that matters. Well, I mean, it's not all that matters, but it's up there. Dads do amazing jobs at keeping the grass green and mowed to perfection. I'm from the Midwest, though, so this is all my experience. I don't know how it is around, the other parts. But have you ever thought about how dads mowed the lawn before the invention of the lawnmower? What was life like before dads had push mowers and riding mowers and bush hogs and Whenever I watch any period piece movie or TV series, they're always walking around in beautiful gardens with perfectly trimmed grass and pristine fountains all over. And I always think, how did they achieve this? How did they mow the lawn? Did they just go in with a sword and just ninja their way through every 2 weeks or what? Let's find out. So obviously there was a time in the history of the world where people didn't care about taking care of grass or having a manicured lawn due to many things like trying not to die, starvation, and living a nomadic lifestyle. So we're just going to fast forward a little bit. It's believed that medieval castles would sometimes clear out the forest surrounding the castle so that they would have a clear view if enemies were approaching. And so then these cleared areas would just be grasses. Or they would build on high ground where few trees were there in the first place. It's also thought that grasslands were important in some ancient plains in Africa because they allowed villagers and hunters to see any danger or threats approaching from far away, like animals or other tribes. And the grasses also served as hiding places for hunters to stalk and hunt their prey. Manicured lawns date back to at least 12th century England. Turf grass, or low-growing grasses, were used for sports and play areas in England and other European countries. These lawns were more than likely popularized because of their use for recreational sports such as croquet, cricket, and lawn bowling. But wealthy people had the most access to these manicured lawns. Lawns, similar to what we think of today with vast areas of nicely cut grass, were popularized more in the 17th century, mainly tied to rich estates or grand recreational areas and pleasure gardens. Some examples include London's Greenwich Park, the Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens, and private estates like the Badminton House, Chatsworth, and the Palace of Versailles in France. These lawns, or gardens as they might have been called, became an important part of society amongst the upper class and wealthy people. The English lawn was a status symbol. There were two main ways one could upkeep a lawn way back then. The first is pretty upfront: animal grazing, using animals to keep the grass short just by having them eat it. Sheep were very common. And the second way was scythes. These were tools used to cut crops such as grass and wheat. They were basically just a long curved blade attached to a long pole that a person flails around while trying not to cut their foot off. They were very labor intensive, as you can just about imagine, much more tiring than a push mower. They also required skill. So they were expensive because you not only had to have the tool, but you also had to hire somebody to use it. And so a lot of people opted for animal grazing instead. Take a second and just imagine your dad or your mom or yourself using a scythe instead of a lawnmower. I don't think it would be pretty. I know that I would probably cut my foot off. I mean, do you see how big those things are? That's what she said. Fast forward to 1830. Edwin Beard Budding, an English engineer and inventor, brought something on the market that would change the future of lawns. He invented what we now consider the first lawnmower and received a British patent for it. He had the idea after seeing a machine in a local cloth mill that used a cutting cylinder mounted on a bench to trim irregularities from woolen cloth and give it a smooth finish. This machine was said to do the same as 6 to 8 men with scythes. So that's a pretty big improvement. I used to have like a modern version of this invention, and I loved to use it as a kid. Like, I thought it was so fun. You only needed your body power to mow the lawn. It was a great workout, as Edwin also said about his invention. I would just push it around and mow the lawn for fun. Like, that was my childhood. A whole 10 years later or so after this first invention, a horse-pulled version was invented. Then a version that used chains instead of gears came about. And by the end of the 19th century, steam and petrol versions were being used. Bigger riding mowers and bush hogs are popular now. And now there are robotic mowers that drive around on your lawn by themselves, like a Roomba. Have you ever seen the movie The Happening? Sometimes it's just not a good idea, people. So these mowers started being used for different things, especially for great lawns and sports. And this invention made its way to other countries and to America. The adoption of the lawnmower was actually slow. People still use scythes and animal grazing up into the 20th century. I mean, they're still used today in some places of the world. But as people were starting to move away from industrialized cities, the modern lawn started to become popularized in the United States when these people moved out into suburban areas. There's one man credited for maybe starting this whole American dream lawn in the 1940s. His name was William Levitt. Him and his father started a company, and he designed a housing development after World War II that was kind of genius. It was named Levittown. The houses were assembly line style, cookie cutter houses, each with a yard, and they were affordable because he cut out the middlemen. Many veterans and servicemen bought the houses because the GI Bill made them incredibly affordable, and this attracted them after the war because many had dreams of becoming homeowners. So this was a big post-war housing development. Levitt inspired suburbanization. These houses were unique as well because they came with step-by-step instructions on how to take care of the lawn. Levitt's father, Abraham, was actually responsible for this part of the housing development. He wrote in a company publication distributed to the Levittowners, "No single feature of a suburban residential community contributes as much to the charm and beauty of the individual home as well-kept lawns." He considered landscaping a form of neighborhood stabilization. Levittown was basically copied and pasted throughout the United States after this, hence the growth of manicured lawns. Many other housing developments took Levittown as an example. Him and his father paved the way for the multi-billion-dollar industry that lawn care has become. Some say that William Levitt was to suburbs as Henry Ford was to the auto. And lawnmowers made having these manicured lawns accessible to normal, everyday, non-rich people. Lawns literally became a part of the American dream, and they still are today. I think it really developed into kind of like a pride thing, especially amongst men. Not only men, but like it is more prevalent amongst the male species. I mean, if you think about it, after World War II, people were like, okay, we can buy houses, we can settle down, we can have families. So you have your own house and you want to take care of it and you want it to look nice. So it's a prideful thing. You take pride in how beautiful your lawn is for people to look at and come over and hang out in the grass. It's so weird. But the lawn is essential. Have you ever sat down and watched HGTV? If you're over the age of like 21, I'm assuming you probably do. But like every time I watch House Hunters, the people say that they absolutely have to have a nice yard, even if it's small. Occasionally you'll get that weird couple that's like, we don't want a big yard because then we'll have to take care of it. Home buyers normally look for a house with a nice yard, at least like an area to be outside in, an outdoor space. So the lawn has developed immensely over the past centuries. And even though most people don't have large, lavish lawns like upper-class Europeans did in the previous centuries, I would say that most homeowners, at least within the United States, have some sort of lawn space that they take care of for their own enjoyment. Lawns have really been adopted into American society and turned into something amazing. For some, it's become an obsession, but I think for most people, they just mow the lawn and call it good. Having your own outdoor space is a blessing. Once you go from living in a house to renting an apartment, you will understand. I hope you have a great rest of your day, especially to those dads out there that have evolved over the centuries and now take such great care of our lawns. And I will see you next time. Bye!